Great. Well, we are here with Steve Kamb, the founder of NerdFitness. How you doing, Steve?
I'm fantastic. How are you doing?
Doing really well. Did I say your last name right, by the way?
You did, yeah. It's
Okay.
I just tell people it's Lamb with a K. What's
That's
it's funny. Whatever I do is like, hi, my name is Steve Kamb. I have a reservation for tonight, and I'm like, it's spelled with a K, and they're like, I'm sorry, I don't have anything. I'm like, are you looking under C? It's like with this, they're like, oh, there it is. It's under K. So like, I literally don't even bother saying my last name anymore. I just spell it. It's like first name Steve, last name Kamb. It's the Lamb with the K, and they're like, no problem. And then they still write it with a C. I'm like, oh, whatever.
That's great. Well,
Yeah.
hey, thanks so much for, speaking here at AstoriaCon 2021. Yeah, we are super pleased to have you here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, Nerd Fitness, how that all started, what that was like, getting that off the ground?
Yeah. So like I'm sure everybody, I grew up reading The Hobbit, and later on it was Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings. I had my parents' old, like, I think taped off of like ABC, like VHSs of the Star Wars movies that I would just watch on repeat. It was Star Wars, Karate Kid, Indiana Jones, just pretty much those 9 movies, I guess, in heavy rotation as a child. And little did I know that they all follow the this concept of the hero's journey. So, anyways, fast forward many years, and I'm trying to get healthy in high school and college, and I dutifully start reading muscle magazines and going to the gym, and have very little success. And eventually came to realize that there's this whole other part of getting in shape about nutrition. And like it turns out, you probably should eat correctly if you're trying to accomplish certain goals. So when I adjusted my nutrition and simplified the heck out of my workouts, I had this fairly dramatic transformation in a number of months. And I thought to myself, like, geez, there have to be other people out there like me who are desperate to feel better about themselves, who probably don't feel great about going to a gym and are super self-conscious, but are just looking for like right information about how to get healthy. And as somebody at the time, I was probably playing, geez, I want to say like 30 to 40 hours a week of video games. Specifically, EverQuest was the game that had my addiction and attention. I figured it's like, well, I can't really help the world, but I feel pretty comfortable and confident speaking my language, and that's, nerd culture and nerd fandom. So I Googled nerd and fitness, and nothing popped up. So I bought nerdfitness.com, and that was in 2007. And eventually ended up getting certified as a trainer, leveled up my nutritional experience, and really since then have just been creating content online to help nerds get healthier, feel better about themselves, and kind of progress on their own hero's journey, and I guess kind of become real life superheroes.
Yeah,
That's so cool.
that's incredible. I want to hear more about that. I do want to back up to the childhood movie rotation. It's a
Sure.
really strong rotation. I gotta ask, what is like the top? In fact, actually, I've been loving this question recently. Give me your Mount Rushmore of like fandoms that you were kind of indoctrinated with as a kid.
Yeah. I mean, Star Wars was probably, I think Star Wars would be the first spot. And if I had to pick one, it would probably be Star Wars. There's something about, I think the first scene I remember is Luke on Tatooine with the dual sunset. And something about that was just so epic. Like the fact that this planet could have 2 sunsets was like, okay, this is just a completely foreign reality, and things are different. And, Luke was just this farmer essentially, who then goes on to have these big, glorious adventures. So yeah, I would say, like, if I'm thinking back to my childhood, Star Wars for sure, Indiana Jones, a world traveling archaeologist, like, who discovers like ancient ruins and fights Nazis. Like, what's not to love about that? So, and then if I had to pick 2 more, I mean, as a kid, it was definitely the third would probably be Karate Kid, and the fourth was Ghostbusters. Those are just like the movies that I remember. Well, I guess maybe that fourth would have been Lord of the Rings, but I was too young to read Lord of the Rings, but I do remember reading The Hobbit. So maybe like that was my introduction to fantasy, and eventually moved on to discover Lord of the Rings when I heard that they were making movies around them. So I feel like that's a pretty strong start. We'll put Ghostbusters as like the honorable mention, fifth head on the Mount Rushmore mountain. I think those are the things that I guess shaped my childhood. As it's pretty, I guess, fairly obvious. It's like it's the nerdy person plucked from obscurity, the nerdy, studious person plucked from obscurity that goes on to have worldwide or intergalactic adventures. Really, really grabbed me.
Yeah, that's a really good Mount Rushmore. So you're like, man, I wouldn't have expected Ghostbusters or Karate Kid, but that's good.
It was funny.
Karate Kid. I mean, yeah, I was gonna say I've done. My grandmother like made me a karate outfit that was like specific. Like she drew the exact pattern from the Miyagi-Do dojo, and now that they've done Cobra Kai,
right,
kind of successfully rebooting that. It's been pretty fun to kind of jump back into. It's weird to say universe because it just takes place in California, but
right.
It's been fun to kind of jump back into that fandom as well.
Yeah. Obviously with fandom, I really like how you kind of told your origin story in very much this way of like, I went to the gym, I tried to read the muscle magazines, and I just didn't really identify almost with like that way of doing things. And it felt like there was only one road to getting there. You were eventually able to tap into your fandom to figure out your own way. And I guess like, I'm really curious, what is it, do you think, about fandom in particular, or embracing that nerdy side, almost that like imagination side? What do you think about that makes setting goals or pursuing a fitness goal so much easier or so much better? Like, what do you think is it about that intersection of things that makes it more unique, I guess?
Sure. I mean, so it's funny. We have a lot of people that come to, at this point, NerdFitness has been around for however many years. We have a team of close to 50 people, a community of, hundreds of thousands, and people stumble across NerdFitness every day. And they, more often than not, they'll say like, hey, like, I'm not really nerdy. Is it okay if I'm part of NerdFitness? And we're like, well, everybody's a nerd in some way. Like what it really means is like, you just care deeply about something enough that you would love to nerd out about that topic. Oh, well, I do have a collection of, I do attend like 4 bird watching meetings every week. And I have an encyclopedia of this and that. And like they go deep down this rabbit hole into this particular topic. I'm like, yeah, no, that you qualify. Like that's a good thing. Like you just care deeply about something. That's amazing. So, I think everybody is nerdy in some way, whether it could be fantasy sports, it could be it could be just regular fantasy. It could be sci-fi. It can be music. I consider myself kind of a music nerd too, where it's like I love following bands and studying set lists and reading lyrics and the behind the scenes and how those songs are created. So anyways, bringing this back to fandom, I think the stories that are the most successful are the ones with the flawed characters who, greatness is, I don't want to say like thrust upon them, but rather like there's an opportunity for them, and this get into more of the hero's journey itself, but there's often an opportunity for them to change and they refuse it. There's that refusal of the call. And for many people, as they're trying to get healthy or get in shape, they've tried everything. They've tried shake weights and Weight Watchers. They've tried going to the gym and they don't feel great about it. And they feel really down on themselves. And they ultimately come to the decision like, hey, it's just not for me. I can't get in shape. These people don't speak my language. I don't know how to get motivated. I don't know how to do these other things. And then hopefully they stumble across, NerdFitness, and they're like, wait a second, like these people are speaking my language, and they're not like super jacked dudes or like bikini clad Instagram models. They're like regular people with real struggles and mental health challenges and day jobs and really nerdy pursuits. They find something that's like, wait a second, I can start out normal and still stay true to who I am, but I can start to transform. And I think for the hero's journey and the different nerd cultures and different fandoms, the best heroes are the flawed characters that struggle, but ultimately overcome through help of, whether it's mentors or allies, and they often face inner challenges. So there's a lot from that hero's journey that we can see in our favorite characters, and a lot of their personality we can see in ourselves. I have Captain America's shield hanging on my wall behind me, and it's one of like 7 different Captain America things hanging in this wall, which I'm not even, or in this my office that I'm not even done decorating yet. So I think it's been fun, or it's fun to put ourselves in the shoes of those flawed, ordinary characters and watch them transform over time. It kind of gives us permission to do the same thing.
Yeah. It's so interesting because from what you said and from what we've experienced with our own kind of nerdy company is that we kind of came around these ideas of fandoms, and Lord of the Rings obviously was a huge inspiration for what we did. But in practice, we're a lot more focused on people's stories and the narratives they talk about themselves, and less about the actual, like the nerdy thing is like gets them in the door. But then once they're here, it's way more about like being nice to yourself, understanding that your flaws are what actually make you a really interesting person and are what make me want to actually learn more about your story. Because if you just got up one day, did 7,000 push-ups, and were Arnold Schwarzenegger, it wouldn't be very interesting, right? You'd just be like, cool, that's not attainable for me.
Right. It's like, oh yeah, really, really good looking, strong person gets slightly better looking and stronger is not a great comic book I'd be interested in reading,
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. How do you use this idea of like story structure, and when you're actually like speaking and working with someone's like specific on their goals? Like, how do you really think about this narrative when it comes down to a real person with real struggles in a real world? Like, do you struggle with like putting it directly in those spots, or do you just like let it kind of flow?
Sure. I mean, it's definitely in flow. So we have a coaching program, and we have 25 full-time coaches that like do online coaching for our clients. And a big part of it is, it literally starts with like, tell me your story. And we want to hear people's origin stories, and we want to hear the words that they use to describe themselves, and really the identity that they've crafted. And we found more often than not that, we often have to, everybody has crafted a story for themselves that maybe protected themselves as kids. And a big part of transforming and leveling up and moving on our hero's journey, it's not just, hey, we're going to have you go do push-ups. It's like, I can write down a program that says like, do 100 push-ups today, eat chicken and broccoli. Like, that's fine, but anybody can look that up anywhere. The more important, and I think the more interesting, is the how and the why. So we really dive deep into the identity aspect of behavior change. It's not just do the push-ups, but how do I become somebody who does push-ups by default? Where it's not, we start with, hey, we're going to be your coach and help keep you accountable. But over time, we're going to shift your perspective from, I have to do my workout today so that my coach checks in on me. But instead, it's like, I have become somebody who cannot wait to see how many push-ups I'm capable of doing today. And that can take a lot of time, and it can take some stops and starts, but it's really important for people to start to change the narrative about themselves. I had a narrative personally. I told myself I was a quote unquote hard gainer. I was super skinny, and I found things online that says, oh, you must be an ectomorph, and that means you really struggle to put on weight and you're never going to build muscle. And that was my story for probably 22 years. And I just assumed that was the story I would always tell myself, and that was the story that was true. And that's what it was. And then I had that change. I learned about nutrition, and I went to a gym and learned about barbell training. And it's like, if I just ate correctly and picked up heavy things, what would happen? And within a month, my entire narrative that I had built for myself had been shattered. It was like, no, you can get bigger and stronger. You just have to do the right thing. So with each of our clients, the most important thing, and I think the most fun thing is tell me your origin story and tell me where you came from. And like, let's talk about that. And then over time, we get to hear the words and the phrases and the identity that they've built for themselves and what their story is. And then we help them rewrite that story with small wins over time. Suddenly somebody that doesn't think they could work out is like, whoa, I've been going for a 5-minute walk every day for the past month. I've never done that before. Like, maybe I am somebody who can exercise, or maybe I am somebody that likes vegetables instead of, oh, my narrative is, oh, I don't like vegetables. Like, narratives can change, and it's that change that makes heroes' journeys and heroes' stories really interesting. So story is a big part of what we do because we're always telling ourselves our own story all day long.
Wow.
Yeah, I loved every second of that.
That was fantastic. That was really, really well said. Yeah, we have certainly seen this kind of the exact same pattern in our community. We even had an individual who their first quest, even backing up from there, like their whole story was like, I can never finish journals. Like, I am the person who buys journals. I start them, I leave them in a closet. They collect cobwebs for years, and then I feel ashamed when I open that closet. I see all of them sitting there. And so I think for her first like 30 days, the quest was just to write in the journal every day. It's like, my goal is just to write, just to show up in the journal. I have no other goal besides to write in my journal. And from there, she just slowly, incrementally stacked the habit of like going on, I think it was like 10-minute walks, maybe 200 steps. So very achievable. Every like
once an hour,
I think.
Yeah.
And I think she's just finished their second journal, and I think she's lost like 20 or 30 pounds.
That's amazing.
Which has nothing to do with fitness. Like it does at the end of the day, but at the origin of it, kind of like you're talking about the psychology of behavior change. Like, it's funny how little it has to do with the actual end product. Rewriting that narrative is really where the gold is. That's really where that breakthrough moment is for a lot of heroes, or we call our customer people heroes. So
love it. I was going to say, well, not only that, but the thing that we found and the thing that makes me maybe the happiest. So I guess there's two things. The first one is, I can't tell you how many success stories we have from people who say, I can't believe it, but I'm now somebody that likes to exercise. Most of our audience has this idea that exercise is something that they have to do and that it's miserable. Because when they think of exercise, they think of probably some jacked dude in a tank top screaming motivational platitudes at them in a class full of really fit people where they don't belong. And it's like, oh, that sounds terrible. Yeah, that does sound terrible. You couldn't pay me to go to one of those classes because that's not what I like or how I want to get in shape. But for me, exercise means like doing handstands and going for walks with my dogs, who you hear in the background. I've walked them out of the office, but they might bark at some point. So exercise for me is picking up really heavy things. I don't like running, so I don't run. So we help people find a different definition of exercise that fits or that they can get interested in and excited about. And like you said, just it doesn't matter what you write in the journal. Just write in the journal. There's a few phrases that we often get backwards. And it's like, don't write when you have an idea, write to find the idea. And that's how my articles and guides and things that I write at NerdFitness and how my book came together was I just started writing. I forced myself to sit down on my computer every day and write 500 crappy words. And over time, it eventually became slightly less crappy. So to bring it back to that second thing I was saying that I really love, when people start to change themselves and change their story, they often see like, oh, wait a second. I was able to change my story in this element. I wonder where else I have been where else I've crafted a false narrative, and I can change that story too. So I didn't think I could like to exercise, and I didn't like vegetables. Now I like to exercise and I like vegetables. I thought I was destined to be in this crappy job forever, or I'm stuck in this dead-end relationship, or I've been always afraid of moving across the country. But wait a second, like I can do these other things now. And what I thought was scary and impossible ended up being manageable and doable. I wonder if I can tackle some of these other things too. So these things all stack on each other. And it's really awesome to see when this stuff comes together.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about this. I'm glad you brought it up. So you wrote a book, and when did you publish your book?
It came out in 2016, I think, spring of 2016. I worked with a traditional publisher, and I think it was spring 2016.
So you started your company in 2007, or you started your journey towards the company in 2007, and then 9 years later you publish a book. I want to ask, it's kind of a weird question, but so it's like you build your entire
weird. Bring it on.
You build your entire company based off like fitness and personal growth from like a health standpoint, and then you turn around and you publish something that's like creative, right? It's like very like writing focused. Was that hard for you to go from like being fitness focused to like being an author, personally being an author? Like, what was your writing process like? We have a ton of creatives in our community, so I'm sure there's people who want to hear about that particular experience as well.
Sure. So it's funny, there's that whole thing out there that says like, find your passion and just follow your passion. Like, I actually think that's pretty terrible advice. I think instead it's like, find something you're good at and see if you can find a way to maybe overlap it with something that's interesting to you, and then get really good at it. And I think what you'll find, like like playing video games, and I'm still a avid gamer, you get hooked on the progress of getting better, and it becomes your passion. So like, my passion wasn't exercise and fitness. I got a degree in economics. I didn't study exercise physiology. Exercise was just something I did. I've discovered a passion or an excitement for writing. I had no idea what I was going to write about until I came across the idea of NerdFitness. And when I started writing articles for NerdFitness, oh man, this is super fun. Like, I'm actually kind of enjoying this, and I like the idea of getting better. But NerdFitness, even since day one, yes, I write about push-ups and eating healthier, but really, it's about bettering yourself. It's about removing the obstacles between you and the things, be they physical or mental or emotional, that are in between you and the goals you're trying to achieve, right? So everything I've always written has always been like, how do I help people just get a tiny bit better today compared to the day before in one of those areas? And that's, like I said, emotional, physical, and mental. And so when I decided to write a book, the idea of just writing a book about like, here's how to do a push-up, or here's how to, here's how to eat more vegetables. It was like, that doesn't sound super interesting or exciting to me. And the only way I can get myself to write stuff is I need to make it as entertaining as possible for me, so that like I'm laughing at myself while I'm writing it, because I'm like, that's the stupidest pun I've ever come up with. I cannot wait to publish that. Like, I have to keep myself entertained when I'm writing. Otherwise, I know people aren't going to be entertained when they read it. And so I have to be entertaining if I'm going to convince people that doing push-ups is fun. So as I was, I guess I've always been a more focused on personal development, but like, I wanted to do it in my way. So I like to think of the book, which I have, it's called Level Up Your Life, and it's super fun. It's kind of designed like a comic book. And the whole thing was written from the perspective of like, what's a self-help personal development book? What would that look like for people that don't like self-help and don't know they need personal development? So this whole book was just kind of that labor of love of, hey, I want to get real weird with it, and I want to make this applicable for people beyond just how to eat better and move better. I wanted to make it like a life guide, because that's what I've been doing. It's like, how do I apply my favorite things from nerd culture and my favorite behavioral tactics from video games and use those to improve my personal life? And that's ultimately what came out with, or what came through my writing with Level Up Your Life.
That's great. Obviously we talk a lot about the hero's journey. And I think that in the hero's journey, there's a lot of pieces that do apply fairly cleanly, I would say, to like a typical goal setting journey. And of course, in every good story, there's always that abyss. There's like that dark moment in every story. No one likes it. It's kind of uncomfortable. We see the hero that we've been rooting for. They like, might literally die or just kind of proverbially die. And then of course they come back and they do the big, like, and you're like, I knew you had it in you, and you're always rooting for them. And it happens every time. Like, I'm curious, where the rubber meets the road, especially when it comes to like fitness goals or fitness quests, as we would call them. Falling off the horse is such a common thing, and it can be a really shameful thing, like breaking your diet, or I missed a week in the gym, or I was like traveling so I didn't get my workout in. How is that sort of like, I guess, yeah, how do you approach that obstacle? How do you approach that abyss when you're setting up the goal, or maybe like kind of in real time? Like, what are like things that you coach people on when they're sort of falling off the horse or have fallen off the horse to kind of get back on?
Sure. Well, I mean, the thing I've been saying for 12 years now is like, if you miss a workout, or if you accidentally eat an entire pizza, because you started and couldn't stop, or you had a really crappy day at work and you had slept in the next day, or you drank too, like whatever it is, like it doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you human, right? Like welcome to the club. There's 7 billion of us, and we're all just disasters trying to figure out like what we're doing on this rock hurtling through space. So when things go wrong, it's like, okay, we kind of coach people to say like, we're scientists and we are our own guinea pigs. So, hey, I'm going to go keto and I'm going to run a marathon, and I'm going to do that in 6 months, even though I haven't moved a muscle in 10 years. Like, okay, I would recommend a slightly less, aspirational goal, but like often many people do that. Like they just jump all in. And they realize like 2 days in, they're like, oh my God, keto is terrible and I hate running. It's like, okay, that doesn't mean you're a bad person. That means that keto is probably not the diet for you. In fact, it's probably not the diet for most people. And if you aren't able to run a marathon and 2 days of training was enough to make you really, really unhappy, let's try, congratulations, you found 2 tactics that do not work for you. As a human, that's totally acceptable. Let's try 2 different tactics. This next time, let's try, hey, maybe let's swap out 1 diet soda, or swap out 1 regular soda for a diet soda. And let's build the habit of going for a 5-minute walk with the goal of 1 year from now, maybe running a 5K. So there's a lot of really empathetic compassion, and encouraging people to have empathetic self-compassion. Like, this is tough. 70% of the country is overweight right now, and it's really, really challenging. The deck is stacked against us. Foods have been designed to be really, really delicious and full of calories. And life's modern conveniences mean we don't have to go do much. We hit a button on our phone and a pizza shows up in 20 minutes. Like, the deck is stacked against us, and it is really challenging. So we need to have empathetic self-compassion that you are going to screw up, and it's going to happen, but it doesn't mean it's the end of the road. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means you just happen to have found a tactic that doesn't work for you. So more often than not, what we encourage people to do is like, hey, let's take a step back. Let's cut that goal and that habit. Let's cut the win scenario way down. So rather than exercise 6 days a week, let's go for a 5-minute walk or wake up and do 5 push-ups first thing in the morning and 5 push-ups at the end of the night. We can always increase the difficulty later. It's like you're leveling up a character in a video game. You have to start with level 1 bad guys, reach level 2. Like, let's start with some level 1 exercises and build the habit and build the routine. And if you miss a day, okay, like if you accidentally forgot to brush your teeth or take a shower yesterday, you don't go like, oh, I forgot to shower yesterday. I guess I'll showering again next year. It's like, no, you just take the shower the next day and you get back to like, personal hygiene, or you just brush your teeth the next opportunity you have. That's totally fine. So the same thing is true when it comes to exercise. Like if you eat a bad meal, or I hate even using the word bad meal, because food is not moral. There's no good or bad. It's just food. So like if you eat a meal that's not aligned with your goals, that's totally fine. Just make the next meal one that is aligned with your goals, and you're fine. Like, just get right back on track. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really great.
You know, it's funny because I'm actually personally starting a new kind of like fitness journey and also includes nutrition. And there's a lot of times where I lay in bed at night and I really want like a Big Mac or like a Crunchwrap Supreme from Taco Bell. And I think
Because
to
they're
myself,
delicious.
yeah, they're so good.
Yeah.
And I've fortunately I've been able to stave off the cravings, but yeah, I definitely understand that moment of like temptation very much so at this point.
Sure. And, so I still eat pizza on Friday nights. My fiance and I, we get a bottle of wine. We get a pizza from a local place here in Nashville. And then we sit down and watch a TV show or a Marvel movie or whatever it may be. And it's delightful. So like I run a health and fitness company. I still eat pizza. My favorite food is chicken parm. Like it's food. Like there's nothing that is off limits to me, but I've worked really hard to have like a healthy relationship with food and also acknowledging that like I can't have all foods all the time, but when I can pick certain foods that I can have occasionally, it makes them more than just the empty calories. It makes them part of a ritual, or it makes them part of a celebration, or part of friends and family. So like, don't feel bad that you want that Taco Bell at midnight. Like that's every once in a while, like if you have Taco Bell, but you're like actively choosing it and you enjoy it, that's amazing. Like I have no problem with that and would honestly recommend that you do. Like it's not a cheat meal because you're not cheating on anything, because you're not doing anything wrong. You're just actively planning for it. You're making it something that you're excited to do. And after it's done, you just get back on track with or back to eating the way that is aligned with the goals that you do have.
Wow. Yeah, it's crazy. Like the closer you get to like the I guess the goal, or like the fit, like the end result, I should say, it's almost like the farther you get away from like just exercising. It's like the story that we all have about, like you're saying, like good and bad food, or I can't eat past like 9 p.m. or like, oh, I can't eat pizza. I run a fitness company. It's like, it's funnier, the closer you get to fitness, the less about fitness it ever was. It was always about like untangling these misconceptions that I think people have around food and around their own body image and ability to stick to a goal and all that stuff.
Sure. Well, not only that, but it's also food is, like a calorie is a calorie, like, right? Like a calorie is a unit of measure, just like an inch or a mile or a kilogram or whatever. Like it's just a unit of a measure for energy. Mm-hmm. But food is more than just food, right? For many of us, food carries often decades of emotional baggage. So it's not just the calories and it's not just the food, but it's also like our relationship with food is honestly like the thing that we work the hardest at with our coaching clients. And I think the reason we're able to have such success with people, a lot of clients say like, this is the first time I've ever been able to be like 100% honest with somebody else about how I eat, because food is really challenging. And the emotions we have with food and our relationships with food, which probably started when we were 3 and our parents fed us, and maybe food meant love to them, and that's why we always clean our or we used food as a coping mechanism, and to this day we still do. Like there is a lot to unwrap with food. So it's calories, you need to be in a calorie deficit in order to lose weight, but it's also like, how do you do this sustainably while adjusting our relationship with food? So there's a lot to unpack and untangle, like you said, and it is about a lot more than just food, and it's about a lot more than just exercise too. It's all about behavior, that story we're telling ourselves, and the emotions that we have been able to connect or not able to disconnect from each of those things.
Yeah. Speaking of stories, like I'm curious, like what is a maybe a client story, or someone who's participated in Nerd Fitness, like what are kind of some of your favorite stories to refer to or to think about that kind of keep you inspired? Like what are some of the results or things that you've seen?
Sure. I mean, if you Google Nerd Fitness success story, I mean, dozens and dozens and dozens with before and after photos, and I think the thing that I love, so I could speak to some specifics, but like I said, I think there are some common threads throughout, and a lot of them are, it's not their first time trying to get in shape. Almost all of our success stories are people that have stumbled across us, hoping against hope that Nerd Fitness is different. Because they've tried Weight Watchers, they tried going to CrossFit, they tried a gym membership and going to boot camp classes at 5 a.m, and they read and watch all the people on Instagram that say like winners never quit and quitters never win and strong is the new skinny and all of those terrible, terrible sayings that make you feel bad about yourself. And then they stumble across Nerd Fitness and it feels different to them. And the toughest thing often for us to get them to do is to slow down and do less. And when we can get them to buy into this idea that like, look, this is going to take time and we're going to do it sustainably and permanently in a way that's not going to make you miserable, they're like, okay, I'm just going to try it. And within a few weeks, clothes start to fit a little differently. And they start to look at themselves in the mirror a little differently. And their internal monologue, and we're often our worst critics, starts to sound a little different. And over time, like I said, almost all of our success stories look back and say, I can't believe it, but I'm now somebody that looks forward to working out. And that is different for everyone. Some people, we have tons of women who are now like love powerlifting. They had never picked up a barbell before. That's actually probably one of my favorite stories, if I can jump into it. There was a woman who stumbled across an article I wrote at this point a decade ago about The Legend of Zelda, which I guess, we were talking about like movie nerddom fandom in the past. If that Mount Rushmore included video games, Legend of Zelda would have been right there with Star Wars. And I wrote this article about how The Legend of Zelda is the greatest video game series of all time. And I think Breath of the Wild has cemented that. But Legend of Zelda taught me how to level up and become a better person. And anyways, her name is Stacy. She stumbled across this article. She tried to get in shape a bazillion different ways and ultimately decided that she wanted to get strong. And she was posting on the Nerd Fitness message boards. And she got convinced to go try to pick up a barbell. And she did. And Stacy ended up falling in love with powerlifting and completely transformed herself. She now deadlifts like 450 pounds and eventually became a coach. Joined Nerd Fitness 8 years ago to help me part-time with some stuff, and then came on the team full-time and is now one of our full-time coaches at Nerd Fitness, helping other women like fall in love with powerlifting. And her story is awesome. Her before and afters are great because she has that after, and I think everybody has their own idea of what they want. But I love that Stacy was able to develop self-confidence and a healthy body image by getting really, really strong. One of the strongest people I know. And she's been such an inspiration for, at this point, hundreds of thousands of people over the past decade through her story. And now, with her coaching individuals one-on-one too, it's been pretty rad to see.
Wow.
Yeah, I got goosebumps. That was a great story.
That's a great story.
It's awesome. I mean, if you just Google Nerd Fitness and Stacy with an I, Staci, it'll blow your mind. I think we not only photos, but I think we have video in there. We're also pulling or deadlifting 450, and at a body weight, I think she weighed 140 pounds, maybe 150 pounds. So deadlifted 3 times her body weight. And still loves the Legend of Zelda to this day. I think she has the Hyrulean shield hanging on the wall behind her in her office.
We have one right there.
You mean that one? Yeah, that's incredible. Wow. Well, hey, Steve, thanks so much, man, for sharing some of your wisdom and sharing some of your insight as far as Nerd Fitness goes and some of your story. And obviously speaking at a StoryCon, this is super exciting.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Where can we find more about Nerd Fitness? Where can we follow you? Where can we get your book? All that stuff.
Sure. So the book, I think you just go to Amazon, or I think it's some bookstores are still carrying it, some aren't. I'm not sure. So either call your local bookstore or just head to Amazon or Barnes and Noble and check it out. The book's called Level Up Your Life, and then other places, Nerd Fitness. It's nerdfitness.com. I've written like 1,000 articles on pretty much every topic under the sun. So if there's anything relating to health, fitness, nutrition, personal development that you're curious about, just Google Nerd Fitness and that topic, and I've probably written 3,000 super nerdy words full of memes and bad puns to cover it. And then as a recent challenge, you were talking about one of your community members who set the goal of writing every day. Nerd Fitness, I started as a writer, and I just loved writing. And over time, it accidentally became a business where I now have 40 plus, somewhere between 40 and 50 team members. And I found myself doing less and less creative work, and kind of put myself in what I called creative debt, where I was consuming other people's content more than I was making my own content. So I'm also hand making or creating all of the content on the Nerd Fitness Instagram channel, or Nerd Fitness Instagram. It's nerd_fitness. That was just me telling the team, this is my little sandbox, leave me alone. And I'm just going to go make stuff every day. And I don't know if it's going to be good or not, but I'm going to have a lot of fun with it. And it was actually through Instagram that I found you all. So I'm glad that I tackled or jumped on that initiative. Just like with the Heroes Journal, it was my idea to just try to create something every day. And that's something that I've been at it now for a good chunk of time, and I see myself continuing that.
Awesome. I have one last question for you. If there's probably someone watching who has fitness aspirations, or most specifically health aspirations. If you could give them one super chewy piece of advice, what would your final parting words be?
Go for a walk. Every one of our success stories starts with, hey, life looks better after a walk. So set the goal of whether it's 5 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day or 2 minutes a day. Literally put on your shoes and walk out the front door, touch your mailbox, or go down, walk out the front door of the lobby of your apartment building. That counts as a win. But become somebody who goes for a walk daily. And that changes your narrative, because then you can start to identify other parts of your narrative that you'd like to update to.
It's a killer piece of advice.
Really good advice.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We'll make sure all the links to everything are out there as well, so you can just click on it. You don't have to type them all in, but thank you so much. And yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks for having me, everyone. I really appreciate it.